$11. In the history of the automotive industry, we've seen bad engines, we've seen ugly designs, we've seen cars that rust before they leave the dealership, but we have rarely seen evil. In 1971, the Ford Motor Company sold America a lie. They marketed a compact car as the perfect, affordable runabout for young families and teenagers. But behind closed doors, in the smoke-filled boardrooms of Detroit, executives were looking at a spreadsheet. They knew it had a fatal flaw. They knew exactly how to fix it, and they knew it would only cost them $11 per car to save lives. They decided it wasn't worth the money. Ford's deadly calculation: the Pinto disaster. To understand why the Pinto became a death trap, you have to understand the panic inside Ford in the late 1960s. Detroit was bleeding. For decades, American cars were land yachts, big steel, big V8s, big profits. But suddenly, the Japanese and the Germans were invading. The Volkswagen Beetle and the Datsun 510 were eating Ford's lunch. They were cheap, reliable, and fuel efficient. And Ford? Ford had nothing. Enter Lee Iacocca, the father of the Mustang, the golden boy of Detroit. He wanted to be president of Ford Motor Company, and he needed a win. He looked at the imports taking over the US market, and he slammed his fist on the table. Iacocca issued a decree that became legend inside the company and a curse for the engineers. The new car, codenamed Lee's car, had to follow the rule of 2,000. It had to weigh less than 2,000 pounds, and it had to cost less than $2,000.
But the biggest problem wasn't the weight or the price, it was the clock. In the auto industry, developing a new car usually took 43 months. That's nearly 4 years of testing, retesting, and safety checks. Iacocca didn't have 4 years. He gave his team 25 months. This was the shortest production schedule in automotive history at the time. Tooling was ordered before the design was even finished. Machines were stamping out parts while engineers were still figuring out if they fit. When you rush engineering, you don't just make mistakes, you make compromises. And to hit that 2,000-pound weight limit, the engineers had to shave metal off everywhere. The bumper? Cosmetic. The frame? Thin. But the most dangerous compromise of all was something you couldn't even see until it was too late. They needed more trunk space to compete with the VW Golf, so they made a design choice that would sentence hundreds of people to death. They put the gas tank here.
In almost every other car on the road in the 1970s, the gas tank was placed above the rear axle. This meant that if you got rear-ended, the heavy steel axle acted like a shield. It took the hit. The Pinto? The tank was placed behind the axle. There was barely any structure between the rear bumper and the fuel tank, less than 10 inches of crush space. And to make matters worse, the bumper itself was essentially decorative chrome. It offered about as much protection as a sheet of aluminum foil. But here is the engineering nightmare. When the Pinto got hit from behind, the tank didn't just get squashed, it got shoved forward, straight into the sharp metal bolts of the differential housing. It was a perfect mechanism for disaster. The bolts acted like spears, piercing the tank instantly. Fuel would spray out everywhere, under the car, onto the hot exhaust pipes, and, crucially, inside the passenger cabin. And because the Pinto was built so cheaply and the metal was so thin, a rear-end collision often buckled the frame, causing the doors to jam shut. So you have a tank that ruptures, fuel spraying on a hot muffler, a spark, an explosion, and doors that won't open. You are trapped in a burning cage. Now you might be thinking, did Ford know? Of course they knew. Before the car even launched, Ford ran crash tests. They crashed the Pinto at 25 miles per hour. The tank ruptured. They crashed it at higher speeds. It leaked every time. The engineers proposed solutions. A plastic baffle to stop the tank from hitting the bolts? $1. A rubber bladder inside the tank to stop leaks? $5. But Lee Iacocca's rule of 2,000 was absolute. Even a $1 part was too expensive if it pushed the price over the limit. The fix was rejected. The car went to production. Then came the smoking gun, the document that would destroy Ford's reputation forever. It is formally known as the Grush-Sonby Report, but history remembers it simply as the Pinto Memo. In 1973, as burn victims started showing up at hospitals and lawsuits began to trickle in, Ford's accountants sat down to do a cost-benefit analysis. They wanted to know, was it cheaper to fix the cars or just pay off the dead people? Here's the math they used. I want you to really look at this. On one side, the cost of the fix. 11 million cars and trucks needed an $11 upgrade to the gas tank. Total cost to Ford, $137 million. Too expensive. Now look at the other side, the cost of letting you die. Ford estimated that if they didn't fix the car, there would be approximately 180 burn deaths, 180 serious burn injuries, and 2,100 burned cars. They assigned a value to each human life. They valued a burn injury at $67,000, and they valued a human life at $200,000. They multiplied the deaths and injuries by these payouts. Total cost to pay for the lawsuits? $49.5 million. It was cheaper to let you die. $137 million to fix it, $49 million to pay for the funerals. Ford chose the savings. They treated human beings like faulty spark plugs, just another line item on a ledger. For years, this memo stayed hidden. The Pinto sold like hotcakes. People drove them to school, to the grocery store, completely unaware that they were sitting on a bomb that Ford had decided was cost-effective. Until one lawsuit changed everything.